Did slavery and war spark the rise of Europe? We're going to look at that. Going around and plundering your neighbors might make you rich, but it doesn't typically make your nation rich. We should not distort history. The Western rise from poverty was difficult and very slow. It took 1,000 years. The first divergence started in the Dark Ages when two illiterate generals fought each other. Near the Spanish French border in October 732, Charles Martel fought the Muslim commander El Ramin. And despite the Muslims' better cavalry, Martel managed a close run victory. His son, Charlemagne, resolved that his people should learn to read so they would avoid the fate of the collapsed Roman Empire. Charlemagne himself didn't read, he was illiterate, but he taught himself and he started a whole network of schools. So leap forward 800 years. Medieval scientists, noblemen, all literate, had surpassed the ancient knowledge by that time. For example, Galileo and Newton stood on the shoulders of giants, that is, the ancient knowledge, when they proved that the earth revolved around the sun, not the other way around. European literacy surged after 1440 when Gutenberg printing press was invented. By 1800, literacy in London, England was 60% for adult males, 40% for adult females. And at the same time, it was only 3% in Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman rulers uh, actively suppressed printing because they were worried that books might challenge their power. In the West, it turned out that literacy was good for business. Written contracts reduced the risk of undertaking big business deals. So by 1750, interest rates were only 3% in Britain and Holland. Compared to China at this time was 25% for interest. And Islam's decree that all interest is usury or is evil tarnished the image of entrepreneurs and it made money lending shameful. It was bad for business. Now, the Muslim world did have substantial resources. It had the best military technology in the world at the time. They had colossal cannon that could shoot a 500 kilogram cannonball 1.5 kilometers. But they decided that with all this power, they were going to attack Constantinople in 1453, and they conquered it. But it led to thousands of Byzantine refugees going to Venice. And these learned refugees caused big trouble for the Muslims. They brought the technology for making clear glass. No one had done that before. All you have to do is heat it in seaweed, it turns out. But that led to the invention of the world's first telescope. It was a very big deal. So the first diversion was literacy. There was no slavery and no war involved. The second diversion is a surprise. No cousin marriage. That was the decree of the Catholic Church at the time. And that policy led to the decline of clans. It shifted peasant thinking from the clan and towards loyalty of the nation state. So reach beyond your tribe. You identify with your nation, not with your clan. Islam took the opposite route. Cousin marriage is tolerable, so inheritance would stay in the family. Clans remained powerful, and it was difficult to build nations. This is the second divergence. Again, no slavery, no war involved. The third and last diversion was the rise of constitutional monarchy. It involved a bit of civil war, no colonial war. So William the Conqueror in 1066 conquered England, and he was a 6 foot tall person, and he had a sword 4 feet tall or long, and he called it his persuader. He was a bully. He ruled by fear. He was an absolute monarch. Now, his great grandson, John the First, in 1215, tried to do the same thing, but he wasn't as charismatic as his great grandfather. And the Norman barons imposed a Magna Carta on him to try to limit his power. Well, it didn't work. So they went on for another 400 years, a tussle between Parliament and between the monarch. And it came to a head in 1648 when Charles I was on the throne. He was from Scotland. He had a lot of cousins in Scotland. And it was after the merger of England and Scotland. And he was having an argument with his Scottish cousins, and he tried to get Parliament to raise taxes to get an army and settle the argument with his cousins. And Parliament said, "No way, we don't want this." So when his Scottish cousins heard about this, they attacked northern England and it took over Newcastle. Well, there was a panic in London. Parliament met and they raised taxes and they elected Oliver Cromwell as their commander. And there was a big civil war between Oliver Cromwell and Charles I. And Cromwell won, and pretty soon Charles I lost his head. He became the Lord Protector, which is in effect a constitutional monarch. He ruled under limited terms, and the government started to work for the people, not for the king. This was a very important change. So now let's compare what's going on in China at the time in the 1400s. The Chinese were more advanced than anybody. They were building the Great Wall, the Grand Canal. They had found a type of rice plant that could grow 3 crops a year. So they found that out in the 1200s, and their population had tripled by 1400. They had blast furnaces, gunpowder. They had great achievements, but they had no parliament. There was an absolute Ming emperor in charge. But the most amazing thing they had were these treasure ships. They were 800 feet long, 180 feet wide. They had 9 masts, and they could carry over 1,000 people. They were 10 times the size of any European ship of the time. And the Ming Emperor was very proud of them, and he sent his best admiral, Admiral Zheng He, off to the Indian Ocean and up and down Arabia and Africa to brag about all the good things the Chinese had. Well, the Admiral He did this for 3 times, and when he came back in the last time, 1433, he was a rock star. He was popular. And the Ming Emperor got worried. He felt threatened, and he made a fateful decision. He said, "Sink all the treasure ships, burn those on shore. Anybody building one will be executed." And China turned inward. It said, "No more foreign devils. We're the Middle Kingdom. We don't need anybody else." And China stopped progressing. If those treasure ships had been kept afloat, it's pretty sure they would have discovered a new world, and today we would likely be speaking Chinese. So, to sum up, what we've got is three divergences: education, literacy, no marriage to cousins, and limit the power of monarchs, plus 1,000 years. That's the ticket to a successful society. Not easy, but it works. And slavery is not involved.